Welcome. So, the EU AI Act. You've probably been hearing about it everywhere lately. And if you're watching this, chances are someone in your organization has asked you to figure out what it actually means for your work. Or maybe you're here because you've decided on your own that this is something you need to understand. Either way, you're in exactly the right place. This is the first video in our series called EU AI Act in Plain English, and the name is intentional. This series is not for lawyers, it's not for consultants writing white papers, it's for practitioners, people who need to actually understand what the EU AI Act requires and then go do something about it. Compliance managers, privacy professionals, product teams, AI developers, procurement leaders, this is for you. Over the next 15 videos, we're going to walk through the entire regulation article by article, obligation by obligation, in a way that makes practical sense. No unnecessary jargon. Lots of real-world examples. By the end of the series, you'll know not just what the law says, but what it means for the work you do every day. In this first video, we're starting with the big picture. What is the EU AI Act? Why did it come into existence? How does the risk-based framework actually work? And who does it apply to? These are the foundational questions. Get these right, and everything that follows in the series will click into place. Let's get into it. So let's start with the big question. What is the EU AI Act and why is everyone suddenly talking about it? Think of it this way. A few years ago, AI was something mostly discussed in tech circles. Then ChatGPT happened. Suddenly, AI was making loan decisions, screening job applications, generating news articles, and driving conversations with customers. And there was no rule book. The EU decided enough was enough. The EU AI Act is the world's first comprehensive legal framework for artificial intelligence. It passed in May 2024, and certain obligations are already live. This is not a future regulation. It is happening right now, affecting organizations across every sector that build or use AI, touching European users. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. It doesn't just apply to EU companies. If your AI system's outputs affect people in the EU, even if you're based in the US, India, or Singapore, you could be in scope. Sound familiar? That's exactly how GDPR worked. And just like GDPR, companies that wait to take it seriously will eventually learn a very expensive lesson. The good news? The Act is built on a risk-based approach. The idea is proportionate regulation, not a blanket ban on AI, but a framework that matches the level of scrutiny to the level of risk. That's actually a reasonable way to regulate something as broad as AI, and it means most low-risk AI remains almost entirely free of obligation. Let's be honest. Why did the EU feel the need to create this law? Because the real world gave us plenty of reasons. When I look at some of the AI use cases that emerged in the last decade, the red flags are not hard to spot. We had credit scoring algorithms that disproportionately denied loans to people based on their neighborhood, which correlated heavily with ethnicity. We had hiring AI that filtered out resumes from women because it was trained on historical data dominated by men. We had social scoring experiments in some parts of the world, governments rating citizens on behavior and punishing them with restricted access to services. The EU AI Act is a response to these real-world harms. The regulators looked at what was happening and said, some of this must be banned outright, some of it must be regulated carefully, and the rest can continue with minimal interference. Think of it like building regulations. Nobody says buildings are dangerous and bans all construction. But we do say, if you're building a hospital, you follow very strict codes. And here's the really important thing for practitioners. Deepfakes, manipulative AI, emotion surveillance in workplaces, these are not hypothetical. They are being built and deployed today. The Act is not ahead of its time. If anything, it arrived just in time. Alright, so how does the EU AI Act actually work? The single most important thing to understand is the risk-based framework. This is the engine that drives everything else. Imagine a spectrum. On one end, you have AI so dangerous that it's banned completely. Think mass surveillance tools and social scoring by governments. On the other end, you have the spam filter in your email inbox or the recommendation algorithm in a chess game. Those require essentially nothing under this law. In between, you have two more zones. High-risk AI, which is subject to the most rigorous obligations. Think AI used in hiring decisions, credit scoring, healthcare diagnostics, or law enforcement. And limited risk AI, which simply has to be transparent. Chatbots must tell you they're a chatbot. Deepfakes must be labeled as synthetic. Here's the insight that most people find reassuring. This framework was designed to enable innovation, not stifle it. The EU explicitly did not want to be the jurisdiction that drives AI companies away. So they drew a clear line. Be responsible at the high end, be transparent in the middle, and do whatever you like at the low end. For practitioners, the key skill is classification. Before you can manage your AI obligations, you must know which tier your AI system sits in. And that classification depends on what the AI does, who it affects, and in what context. Same AI model, different context, potentially different risk tier entirely. Now let's get to the who question, because this is where a lot of organizations get caught off guard. The EU AI Act applies to four main types of actors in the AI value chain. Providers are the companies that develop AI systems and put them on the market. Think AI vendors, SaaS platforms offering AI features, model developers. They carry the heaviest obligations: technical documentation, conformity assessments, CE marking for high-risk AI. Deployers are organizations using AI systems in their business operations. You license a hiring AI from a vendor and use it to screen candidates. You are a deployer. Deployers carry operational obligations: human oversight, staff training, incident reporting, fundamental rights assessments in some cases. Then there are importers and distributors, companies that bring AI products made outside the EU into the EU market, or who distribute AI products within it. They carry obligations too, especially around ensuring the product actually meets compliance requirements before it hits the market. And finally, there's a category that often surprises people: authorized representatives. If a non-EU company wants to place an AI product in the EU market but doesn't have a legal presence there, they need to appoint an EU-based authorized representative. This role carries legal responsibility, so it's not just a paperwork checkbox. The big takeaway here is that no one in the chain is invisible. Regulators designed this to create accountability at every link. Let's talk dates, because this is one of the most practical things you need to know as a practitioner. The EU AI Act does not have a single deadline. It rolls out in phases, and each phase brings specific obligations live. August 2024 is when the Act officially entered into force. The clock is running. February 2025 is the first critical milestone. Prohibited practices and AI literacy requirements became enforceable. If your organization is doing anything covered by Article 5's prohibitions, you needed to stop by then. And if you haven't started your AI literacy program, you are technically already behind. August 2025 is when GPAI model obligations and governance architecture rules kick in, particularly relevant if you're building or deploying large language models. August 2026 is the big one. Full high-risk AI obligations apply to providers and deployers. This is the compliance deadline most organizations are working toward. And then August 2027 onward brings additional provisions into force for specific categories like product safety, AI, and certain large-scale IT systems. There's even a 2030 deadline for some EU-run systems. The practical message here is simple. If you're a compliance professional or a practitioner responsible for AI governance, you cannot treat this as a future problem. The timeline has started. The best time to start your AI compliance program was 6 months ago. The second best time is today.